Hi guys, this is Caitlin and welcome to my presentation on the Infinity of Lists, an illustrated essay by Umberto Eco. Now, Eco is an Italian author best known for The History of the Rose, which is a mystery novel set in medieval Italy. He's also a world-renowned medievalist, philosopher, semiotician, literary critic, a man of many talents. A semiotician is someone who studies semiotics, which is the study of signs and symbols and their use or interpretation. He wrote The Infinity of Lists after spending a period of several years at the Louvre as a guest lecturer, researcher, and curator. Now, The Infinity of Lists is presented as an anthology by Eco. There are 21 chapters in the Infinity of Lists, and each chapter revolves around a specific theme. And those themes include the ineffable, the exchange between list and form, coherent excess, and many more. But as there are 21 chapters, I'm not going to sit here and list the 21 themes for you. If you want to know them all, go read the book. Now, each chapter opens with Eco's essay on that theme and is followed by examples that help illustrate it. And these examples are pulled from a variety of sources, mostly literary and artistic, and they range in time from ancient Greece to the early 2000s. Some of the literary examples are excerpts from Homer, the Gospels, Dante, Dickens, Joyce, Victor Hugo, and many, many more. It's quite an eclectic mix of authors that Eco has included in the Infinity of Lists. The same can also be said for the artistic examples. We have everything from Dutch still life paintings, such as this one by Frans Snyder on the right, entitled The Fish Market, to mosaics, surrealist paintings, landscapes, jewelry, almost an endless variety of artwork. The only kind doesn't really include is statuary. As Eco says, it's sort of hard to find a statue that suggests an etc. Now, the fish market here manages to suggest the etc. of sea life. You can see all the different kinds of aquatic life piled on the table and in the baskets and in the foreground, and you can take that as the artist's sampling of the almost infinite variety of sea life available. Now, Eco also draws a distinction between a poetic list and a practical list. A poetic list is one that points towards the infinite, like I said, to go back to the earlier example of the fish market, or it could also be, say, a painting of the night sky. Obviously, an artist can't include every single star that they can see in the sky, or all the stars that are actually in the sky. So you can take that painting as a listing of a sampling of the variety of stars to be found in the night sky. Now, a practical list, on the other hand, is finite, pragmatic, and unalterable. Examples of a practical list would be, say, a grocery list, a chores list, a museum catalog. Now, they're finite in the sense that they must refer to actual items in the physical world and are therefore limited, that the number of them is known. They're pragmatic, so obviously you're using these for a much more mundane purpose than, say, a poetic list. And they're unalterable in the sense that it would be, say, silly to include items on a grocery list that you don't intend to purchase, chores on a to-do list that you don't intend to do. And in the case of a museum catalog, it would also be unethical to include works in the catalog that the museum doesn't actually contain at the point of the catalog's creation. Now, Eco also spends time meditating on the question of why people and societies make lists in the first place. And as he says, it's to make infinity comprehensible and to create order. Now, the creating order is much more of a practical purpose. The making infinity comprehensible it sort of straddles the line between practical and poetic. Now, just because people tend to be overwhelmed by the idea of infinity, so having a list that provides an example makes it feel more manageable, or it can inspire a feeling of awe when you realize just how many different types of that category there are. And when you use a list to order knowledge, it makes it easier to share and to remember. And Eco uses the example of, say, of an encyclopedia as being something as a list that orders knowledge. And they can also serve literary and artistic purposes, such as Victor Hugo uses a massive list in his novel, The 93, to impress people with the scope of the French Revolution. And lists also can gain meaning from their form as well as their contents. As an example, we have a painting here by, if I mangle this, but Giuseppe Acrimboldo, entitled Spring, which you can take as a visual listing of different types of plants, but the form it takes is of a portrait. Now, if Acrimboldo had chosen to arrange his list in a different form, we might have, say, a cat or a house or something. So you can see how a list can communicate more than just the items in the list. He also spends time on the history of lists, and he notes that there's a shift from a focus on religious relics in the ancient and medieval world to the wonders of the human body during the Renaissance, and you start seeing things like the wonder cabinets and collections of physical oddities. And he also makes a note of how the internet has changed lists by limiting the signification of the list and privileges more just the information in the list itself. And this is due to what Umberto calls inability to know which elements of the list refers to data from the real world and which does not. So we can't make any distinction between truth and error and what might be implied or things of that nature. Now, as for reviews, the Infinity of Lists has not received much attention from the scholarly community, so I used some reviews for lay audiences, book reviews from newspapers. The two that I found that were contemporary were from the Washington Post and the Guardian. And then I did find ones, and they were contemporary with the release of the Infinity of Lists. And I did find one scholarly review from 2017, which was 8 years after the publication of the Infinity of Lists. Now, the Post and the scholarly review are favorable to the Infinity of Lists. The Guardian review finds the premise of Infinity of Lists to be unconvincing. In my opinion, The Infinity of Lists is a very enjoyable and interesting read. I would like more of Echo's own words, which is the other main complaint in the Washington Post review as well. And I do think Echo's arguments that a list can represent or imply infinity to be convincing, and that they can communicate much more than just the items that they contain.